What is going on, everyone? Are you tired of the rat race? Want to find a nice rural town, buy a home, rent a place? Today we're looking at great rural towns in New Hampshire. We just did a video the other day about great rural towns to retire or live as a remote worker across the United States. We had a bunch of people ask if we could expand and do it by state. So here we are. I also got a bunch of questions about a good mesothelioma attorney. I guess I mentioned that and then a flurry of ads popped up on my video, and then people started telling me that they went through that and got their structured settlement and then retired. Apparently, this is a bigger thing than I thought it was going to be. I mean, after a while, I started feeling bad. It's like, good, I'm glad you got a good lawyer. Sorry you got exposed to asbestos. If you didn't see the first video about country living, I'll explain. If you're a remote worker looking for a place away from the big city or looking to retire in the country, this video will show you some places that may fit that bill. With these towns, we're looking for that sweet spot, a decent place to live that isn't too close to a major city, but not so far away that getting to a doctor's appointment or something like being able to catch a quick flight out of town that doesn't include crop dusting. We also look at the internet speeds on this video because that's part of life these days. I mean, maybe about 5% of us can get by living in the country and not need internet at all. Most of us need internet. All right, let's take a look at some great rural towns in the Granite State, New Hampshire. Number 7, Berlin, New Hampshire. Now, this isn't in any particular order, and yes, you did hear me right, 7, not our usual 10. That's because not every state has 10 solid options in this category. I don't want to be reaching on a bunch of them and give you a bunch of crap. I want to get to the good ones and not waste a bunch of your time. We start off with our first rural town of Berlin. It is in the northern section of New Hampshire, about 20 minutes from the Maine border, and about 2 hours from Concord, New Hampshire. In case you need a doctor's appointment, you should be able to get a doctor's appointment and be perfectly fine in town because Berlin has the Androscoggin Valley Hospital. They also have a small community college, and they got about 10,000 residents living here. Those residents get to have clean air and a nice river going right through town, the Androscoggin River. Great fishing, fly fishing, whatever you want to do. And you're also not too far from the Canadian border in case you need to get some medication. Berlin used to be like the center of the universe when it came to pulp and paper making. They had a paper mill here that pretty much employed most of the town for a lot of years. It changed hands and finally closed down. I definitely would not recommend this place to anyone that needs a job. I mean, the people that are there are having a hard time finding jobs themselves. This town is in desperate need of, well, I guess a big industry to move in, or the people that I'm targeting on this video, and that's retirees and remote workers. The crime rate in Berlin is 40% lower than the national average, and the housing is about 52% lower than the national average. When it comes to the housing, I don't think they've really built any new houses in quite some time here. You can get older houses that might need a little work for under $200,000. And that's really surprising because this is New England, and all states are not created equal when it comes to housing prices. New England is almost always going to be more expensive than a place like, I don't know, the Deep South or something. But Berlin's doing a pretty good job. When it comes to internet, you got Spectrum Internet, which gives you about a gig. That's good. Anyone could work with that. They also have a thing called Consolidated DSL, which says they have 100 megabytes per second. Now, every place on these lists have like HughesNet and Viasat and stuff like that. Those are satellite that you can get anywhere in the country. But if you're working from home and you need a good internet connection, that's usually not the best option. You're just checking emails and stuff like that, yeah, probably fine, but if you need to do video conferencing or upload anything, you might be having a rough time with those. Number 6, Peterborough, New Hampshire. Peterborough is a small southern New Hampshire town of about 3,000 residents, about an hour west of Manchester, New Hampshire. And it's about an hour and a half away from Boston. So you got Manchester's not the biggest city, but Boston definitely is. So you got two options if you need to get someplace. Like I said in the last video, local news is a great way to understand what a place is like. If they don't have a bunch of shootings or home invasions on the news, it might be a great place to live. The big news in Peterborough right now is Scott is leaving the recycle center after 22 years of work in there. Bravo, Scott. Peterborough doesn't have a lot of houses for sale right now, but it is worth keeping an eye on if New Hampshire's something you want to do. In 2020 and 2021, they had a handful of older homes that are nice, sell for between $250,000 and $350,000. Obviously, prices have changed and they've gone up, but I'm not going to guess at what they are right now. The crime rate here is 61% lower than the national average. This is another place that has that consolidated internet. It's DSL and fiber in this town. It says 99% of Peterborough is covered by them, and it looks like about 70% of the town has the option of Xfinity. So you got two good options there. And of course, via satellite or via satellite and HughesNet are always there. Number 5, Bristol, New Hampshire. Bristol is a nice river town of almost 2,000 residents on the Pemigewasset River, or what most of the locals call it, the Pemi. If you don't know, New Hampshire is a very rural state with plenty of things to do for the outdoor types. Bristol has hiking trails and good fishing in the area. They got creeks and wooded areas all over the place. You could find something to do outdoors if that's what you're into. They also have a really nice, clean downtown and next to no crime. The crime rate here is 54% lower than the national average. Now, this is another one that doesn't have a lot for sale right now. They do have one really nice one that's just off of a lake, $430,000. Yeah, it's a little pricey, but you're right there on a lake and a nice place to live. If you need to get into the hospital or anything like that, you're only 40 minutes away from Concord. This is not a bad place to raise a family. And when it comes to internet, you got a couple choices, but you got Consolidated, which is DSL and 80 Mbps. And then they got one called Breeze Line, which I've never heard of, but you can get 1 gig from them. It's cable internet. Number 4, Plymouth, New Hampshire. Plymouth is a small rural town in about the center of New Hampshire. It has around 4,000 residents that enjoy a solid hospital, a nearby country club for golfers, ski slopes, a gun club, and a really safe town. This place is incredibly safe. The crime rate here is 37% lower than the national average, and the only thing that I was looking up their crime, it's just like theft and stuff, petty theft, breaking into cars. That's all that they had, and it was hardly any of that. Now, I got a little sad reading this one. Like I said, I like to go to the local news and see what's happening. If nothing but obituaries of older folks, that's fine. It's expected. Sad, but expected. I looked up Plymouth and a young lady passed away, 21 years old, in an auto accident, and I feel so bad for the family. Been thinking about it all day. They must be devastated right now. You never want to see that. Anyway, kind of sucks. Plymouth is just about 20 minutes north of Concord, and it has solid internet. Breeze Line and Consolidated offer gig internet here. Now, of course, they got some other ones, but Breeze Line and Consolidated are your best options. Like I said, they got good health care. They have Spear Memorial Hospital right there, and dentist and all that stuff. And they also have Plymouth State University, where that young lady was a student at. If you decide you want to move to Plymouth and buy a house, you have some good options here. I mean, it's relatively inexpensive, so to speak. You can get a home anywhere from $240,000 to $300,000. It might need a little work. You can get them a lot higher, and they're not going to need any work, but, $250,000 to $300,000, you should be able to get something livable. Number 3, Conway, New Hampshire. A little northeast of Plymouth, we have Conway, New Hampshire, right there by the Maine border. This is a great place for hikers. They got a lot of trailheads in this area. Maybe not in town, but the surrounding area has a lot of hiking trails, a lot of good mountains to climb up. Conway is not a cheap place to live. It's actually pretty expensive when it comes to real estate. If you want to buy anything right now, I think the cheapest thing they have is about $420,000, but they go all the way up into $1 million. But it's a wonderful place to live. Now, in late 2021 and just a couple days ago, they have sold some homes for around $300,000, but a majority of the homes are going to be over $400,000. In some cases, well over $400,000. Conway has a little over 3,000 residents, and they have a crime rate that's 10% lower than the national average. Conway has the Saco River right there, which has great fly fishing, things like that. They also have a smaller river called the Swift River and a big pond right in town. They also have an ice arena and a Subaru dealership. I mean, what kind of respectable mountain town that gets bad weather doesn't have a Subaru dealership? We got tons of them here in Portland, and we're not even really a mountain town. But like I said, Conway is expensive, but it might be worth it. Keep in mind, in my last one, I was talking about home prices, and I said some of them are over $450,000. Some people freaked out. Well, $450,000, who can afford that? Well, a lot of people can afford that if that's the price it's going for. If nobody can afford that price, then they don't make it that price. That's how the free market works. Conroy has a hospital called Memorial Hospital that's right in town. It's a good-sized hospital, should be able to take care of all your needs. If you need something else from a hospital, you're probably going to have to go to Portland, Maine, or Concord, New Hampshire. Concord, New Hampshire is about an hour and 45 minutes away, where Portland, Maine's about an hour and 20 minutes away. When it comes to internet, you have the usual suspects. Spectrum covers 100%, they say, of Conway, and you can get 1 gig internet from them. Number 2, Gorham, New Hampshire. Right down the road from Berlin, New Hampshire, you have the town of Gorham. Gorham sits on the Androscoggin River, about 2 hours from Concord, New Hampshire. It's also close to a whole bunch of really cool stuff: hiking, mountain biking, skiing, snowmobiling, just to name a few. You can also hop on the Appalachian Trail here, where you might run into a shaman. At least that was one girl's experience. She said she ran into a shaman while hiking the Appalachian Trail. She told this big story about it, and he told her that she would have 2 children. She had 4, so he was half right. She actually went on to name her second son after the shaman. She has a son named Corky. Corky the shaman? That has to be against some spiritual law to be a shaman named Corky. Corky the shaman. A cartoon character, not a shaman. Anyway, you can hike Mount Washington or take the really cool cog railway that takes you up the top. It's really, really neat. There's so much to do here. When it comes to healthcare, you have the Androscoggin Valley Hospital right up the road in Berlin, and internet will be with Spectrum. Again, gig internet, out in the middle of the beautiful countryside. When it comes to buying a home here, you're currently looking at about $350,000 and above. It's a little pricey here, but in the last 2 months, they've sold 4 or 5 homes for under $220,000. And they've looked nice, a little older, but nice. And then on top of all that good news, their crime rate is 13% below the national average. Safe, fun, and beautiful. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below. It is gaining steam. We'd really appreciate it if you helped it out and went over and subscribed, watch some videos. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Just 25 minutes west of Concord, New Hampshire, you have the town of Hillsborough. It's not really a town, it's a census-designated area, but most people just call it a town. From what I read, it can also be spelled Hillsborough, Hillsboro, or you add the UGH at the end. Technically, the UGH goes on the end. It's a little weird. Either way you spell it, this town sits on the Contoocook River and not too far from Franklin Pierce's homestead. In case you don't know who that is, he was our 14th president. He is also considered one of the worst presidents that we've ever had. C-SPAN and a bunch of presidential historians came out with a list where they ranked all the presidents. I'll leave a link below. Hillsborough has almost 6,000 residents and a very low crime rate. It's actually 59% lower than the national average. Now, the actual town only has about 2,000, but like I said, it's a census-designated area. This one's weird. So the town that's kind of there is 2,000 residents, and the whole area has 6,000. Anyway, they got a lot of homes in the woods outside of town. Like every town in New Hampshire, they got plenty of things to do outdoors. If you haven't picked up on that yet, it snows a lot in New Hampshire. If you hate the cold and the snow, scratch Hillsborough off your list. As a matter of fact, go ahead and scratch the entire state of New Hampshire off your list. It is beautiful and you'd be missing out. As far as homes go, you can get a stunningly beautiful home in Hillsborough between $350,000 and $450,000. It does go up from there, so be prepared if you're looking. Occasionally, you might find something that's under $300,000, but most of the time, $325,000 is going to be your starting point for this town, or census-designated area. Okay, so the website has like 3 different companies that supply internet here. One is called TDS. They say they'll give you 1 gig. It's fiber. You also have fiber with Granite State Communication. They'll give you a gig, but probably the most reliable one is Xfinity. They're only in about 85% of the homes here, and they'll give you 1.2 gigs. So yeah, one of the 3 should be able to work at your house if you move to Hillsborough and buy a house. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.